Here's a poem that exemplifies Emily Dickinson very well. It's a little bitty poem that carries a great big truth. Let's read it first, and then we'll talk about it for a moment. Much madness is divinest sense to a discerning eye, much sense the starkest madness. 'Tis the majority in this as all prevails. Assent, and you are sane. Demur, and you're straightway dangerous, and handled with a chain. Now, the word madness in this poem does not mean angry. The speaker uses the term in a more 19th century way to mean insanity or abnormal thinking. The word divinest used as an adjective here means extremely perceptive or insightful. So we might paraphrase the first line to mean something like this. Much abnormal thinking, or what appears to be insanity, is in fact supremely sensible to a discerning eye. The word discerning means to be able to see beneath the surface. And note that the third line flips that idea around. Much sense, the starkest madness. Things that appear to be sensible on the surface really aren't, to people with a discerning eye. 'Tis the majority in this, as all prevails. The majority are those who do not possess a discerning or perceptive eye. The majority represents conventional thinking. Conventional thinking, so suggests the speaker, is narrow and shallow and not perceptive. And so, how does society work? Assent, and you are sane. That is, agree with the majority. Assent means agree. And everybody assumes that you're sane. You're all right. Demur, however, demur means to withhold approval, to reserve judgment, not buy into the popular mindset, whatever that is. If you demur, you're considered straightway dangerous. Straightway is a 19th century word that means immediately. You're straightway dangerous and handled with a chain. It is helpful for us to remember that in the mid-19th century, when Emily Dickinson wrote this poem, mental illness was misunderstood, and the mentally ill were treated very harshly. They were put in asylums and chained up for life. Very brutal system, and that's where Emily Dickinson gets that final sharp image. Well, once again, the truth here is a large one. History is full of geniuses that have not bought into conventional thinking and been dismissed or treated harshly by the majority, and in the end their madness ends up to be divinest sense. I read a biography of Albert Einstein a few years ago, and it was quite interesting. As a young physicist in Germany, he was a poor student. He had difficulty learning to read as a child. And when he began to study physics, he came up with these knuckle-headed ideas that didn't make any sense whatsoever. And yet, in the end, he had the discerning eye, because those ideas that the majority dismissed turned out to be divinest sense. Among other things, those ideas included the principle of relativity. Or think about someone like Nelson Mandela of South Africa. South Africa was a country with an overwhelming population of Africans, but ruled by a small, educated white minority. It was assumed that this uneducated African majority could not govern themselves. They weren't educated. They had no knowledge of government, of law, of structure. Nelson Mandela said, "We can do this." But that was not the majority opinion. He was considered straightway dangerous and locked up for 26 years. But in the end, he was right. International pressure finally brought about his release. He ran for president of South Africa. He won, and Africans gradually took over the government and governed themselves. The point of this poem is as relevant today as it's ever been. We need to be careful about buying in too quickly to conventional thinking, because sometimes the majority is not very discerning.